Here's Quinn. What's going on, guys? We're here with episode number 8 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week, we're going to be discussing Poirier versus Hooker. We are also going to be at the halfway point of the show doing our random drawing for $500 for the Jim Miller sub contest last week. And with us today, got a special guest, my friend Joe Suntszu. You probably know him from Daily Alpha and one of the other million other podcasts he does weekly on DFS. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man, and I'm really thankful you guys invited me. This is unique for me because as we were talking about off air, I tend to think about DFS, MMA first and betting second, and you guys are all like hardcore betting first guys and DFS second. So this is really kind of unique for me. I'm really going to enjoy this.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, man. Glad to have you here. So we will jump right in then.
What the?
Looks like we lost him.
Technical problems already.
All right, we'll just stick around for, I guess, a minute or so and see if John can jump back in. If not, we'll send out a new link and go back live again.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still loading up all my stuff here. How you doing, Joe?
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Good.
Just got off work.
Sorry.
Oh, there's John. He's back.
I don't know. I think I accidentally X'd out when I was going to the stats page. Yeah. So, first fight of the night is Kay Hansen, Jin Yu Fry. Joe, I will throw it to you first.
Awesome. Okay, so look, I was so happy that the UFC is starting to sign some Invicta fighters, especially at 115 and 125. Now, what's interesting about this fight is Frey is the current Invicta atomweight champion. And for those of you that might not recognize atomweight, that's 105, which the UFC doesn't have. I heard she's been having some difficult time making weight. I don't think she's missed weight in a while, but, she is kind of a decision fighter, susceptible to takedowns, which kind of brings us to Hansen. I really like Hansen, 20 years old, trains at, 10th Planet in Buena Vista. Again, I don't think Hansen is the best prospect. My girl Erin Blanchard from New Jersey is a beast. She's actually beat Hansen, but I'm happy that Hansen got the call. Not as crazy about the line, minus 175. I honestly thought this was going to open up a lot tighter. I do think Hansen has got a path to victory here, a defined path to victory, and she is going to aggressively pursue takedowns. That is her mantra. And if she tries for multiple takedowns and gets one, that could win her the round. Because Frey isn't great at getting back up. So I like Hansen here. I don't know if I would advocate a bet at minus 175, and I'm not comfortable enough to know that there's going to be a finish either way, but I do like Hansen for the win. All
right, Luke, what do you got this fight?
Yeah, so Joe touched on a lot of good points here. I'm pretty familiar with both girls. I capped Kay Hansen minus 150 here. So to Joe's point, I do not like the line on her straight currently. I think it's a little bit high. I think you do have to give Jin Yu Fray a little bit of respect here. I know I've heard a lot of narrative too on Twitter that, because Kay is 20 and Jin's 35, that, Jin's going to have this massive sort of vet advantage here. But realistically, over the course of her career, she really hasn't had that many fights. I think she's only had roughly 13 fights in the last 8 years. So I don't think that narrative necessarily holds weight, as I don't think she's just this massive vet who could put on a necessarily vet lesson here. But in terms of how it stylistically plays out, Joe also brought up a lot of good points. I think the mistake people are making here in terms of if they're betting Frey is that they're assuming that we're going to see like a 2018 Kay Hansen. And I think really what we've seen from her, in especially recent years in her most recent fights, her wrestling has gotten exponentially better. She's taken a ton of grappling matches. She's taken a ton of boxing matches. Once again, I know she's only 20 years old, so very green still, but I think she's making the proper steps to make these solid improvements. And so from a betting perspective, like I said, I don't like Hansen straight, but what I did move in on yesterday was I put 1 unit on Kay Hansen by decision at plus 150. I think the big thing here is that we've seen Kay get a lot of like late submissions, and then largely we've only seen Frey lose on the cards. She did get knocked out one time by Siho Ham, who is a former UFC vet as well. But ultimately, I think it's going to be that top pressure and aggressive wrestling of Kay to win her rounds here. And then Frey is also, both girls are purple belts too. I think that's important to note. I think from what we've seen on the ground that Frey is defensively responsible. So I don't think necessarily that Kay is going to be able to have the success in terms of submissions that she's had historically. So I think I'm getting a real solid amount of value here on Kay Hansen by decision at plus 150.
Thanks, Luke. Lags, what do you got here?
So unlike Joe and Luke, I actually haven't looked much into this fight at all, and I don't really know much about either of these girls. So and to be honest, I've touched on other pods before that I really don't like betting on two debut fighters in the same fight unless there's a really strong reason. So for me, it's a pass.
Quinn, how about you?
It's a pass for me. I taped this fight, and I actually really like both girls. I think Frey has some pretty decent striking, and she's actually not that bad off of her back. Like she's pretty active in her guard off of her back, which is nice. But she backs herself up into the cage like constantly, and with the smaller cage, and with Hansen going for a massive amount of takedowns. I mean, she's gonna put it on Frey. She's gonna be grapple heavy here. I just don't think it's like a very good stylistic matchup for her. But like Lag said, I'm not in the business right now of betting debuting fighters, especially fighters coming in on short notice. I don't know really like how these girls' weight cuts have been, how much time they've had, how their cardio is going to be. So there's just a lot of red flags, and I really thought this was going to open up like Hansen minus 120, minus 130. So I was pretty shocked when what did she open up at, like minus 165 or something like that. So there's definitely no play on me. I think if you're going to make a play, the Hansen by decision line is definitely value. I do think Frey has enough experience on the mat to not get subbed here. Also, you know, Frey's coming in and she was jacked at 105. Like her physique was very jacked, and you know, she's going to be dealing with USADA here. So, you know, we don't know how that's going to affect her. She could just have absolute shit cardio. So yeah, in my opinion, there's no play here, and if you're going to play it, definitely hit the decision line.
Yeah, so I don't have a play as of yet. I taped it pretty aggressively, and like first, kind of weird, went through a weird process with this because the first couple Hansen fights I watched, I was like, oh my God, this girl's wrestling is so bad. It's like, this is like, in my head, I'm like, Frey should be minus 200. Like, this is insane. And then, like, you know, you get to Hansen's last two fights, and she's clearly like leveled up like massively since then, just in terms of like her technique. Her entries are a lot quicker. You know, her single and double legs are a lot cleaner. She's not just kind of clinching girls to the fence and looking to drag them down here. So she's definitely gotten better, and like she seems like a lock to attempt 9 or 10 takedowns or more over 15, which is like, it's like one of those things. It's like in WMMA, that's going to be enough to beat almost anybody. It's almost like, you know, Aspen Ladd. I don't think she's that skilled, but what she does, just like pace pressure, you know, that beats almost anything in WMMA. The one thing that concerns me is the couple times I've seen Hansen on her back, she's looked really bad. So like the Jacobson fight's kind of understandable because like Luke, you told me this, but Sharon Jacobson was like a collegiate wrestler and like a champion. So that's understandable. The Sarmova fight in the next one though is less understandable. And like again, she's leveled up hugely, and it's impossible she cleaned up those issues. I just haven't seen her on the back again since. And so Frey will occasionally shoot takedowns. And so it's like I keep thinking about it like, well, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if Frey landed a takedown or two over the course of 3 rounds. And then it's like if Hansen hasn't improved her bottom game, she could just get held down. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I like the line you played, Luke, and like I'm thinking about playing it as well. I just, you know, to both Lags and Quinn's point, the debuting fighter thing scares me a bit. But yeah, so we move on. We go to Jordan Griffin, Yusuf Zalal. It's a featherweight bout. Griffin was scheduled to fight Derek Minner a couple weeks ago. I had a play on Minner there, which unfortunately got canceled. I actually play here as well. I picked up Zalal for 2 units about plus 115. I think he's about minus 115, 120, depending on the book you're at now. But basically, thinking here is like Griffin. I just don't rate Griffin like at all, to be honest. That the guy, he has no defense like whatsoever. He can't defend takedowns whatsoever. He pretty much. I had this conversation with Gugabe the other day where we were discussing this fight, and he basically said all Griffin does is just kind of exponentially advance his meme chance to win fights by just attempting subs from horrible position constantly. And like that seems like the best way to describe it. Like Griffin's going to just attempt ridiculous sub after ridiculous sub. And, maybe he'll catch Zalal in one of them. But Zalal is a lock to attempt takedowns. He's the younger fighter and he should be improving. He seems much faster, bit rangier. I kind of think if it stays standing, he's probably going to just outvolume him because Griffin's stand-up's not particularly coherent. And he's going to attempt takedowns and likely get takedowns. So unless Griffin randomly subs Zalal, which is possible, I just kind of think Zalal should be about minus 150. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, so I love this. I love the tagline for this fight. You've got the native psycho against the Moroccan devil. Both come from good camps. Factory X for Rufus Sport for Griffin, Factory X for Zalal. Look, Griffin is a guy that's really frustrating to bet because he loses until he wins. Like TJ Brown, I mean, my God, like what did he take him down 14 times? And I mean, I think the guy just literally gasped from taking him down so many times. So it's a really frustrating fight. I mean, I, like you, want to go that way, Eric. It's just I don't know that I have a high level of confidence. And unfortunately, being the DFS guy that I am, I'm going to have to play this fight, especially if we only have 10 fights, if we don't get a replacement for Maverick. So, like, I really want to go with the Factory X guy here, but, like, Griffin scares me.
Yeah, he's not great. He's not great. Real quick, Jake Lee, you said, where is C. Hansen? C had a work event tonight. We will still be doing his drawing, though, and he will still be paying someone $500, so don't worry about that. Luke, on to you. Do you have a play here?
No play here for me. This is kind of the fights one of the fights, and as of many on this card, I was looking to stay away from. I definitely don't hate your play, John, at plus 115. I think if you were to bet this fight, I think that was probably the side. As once again, as Joe touched on, I don't rate Jordan Griffin very highly. He's a guy who's largely losing until he wins. I guess my big thing here is I don't know if this fight hits the mat that Zalal's necessarily going to be defensively responsible enough to avoid that kind of fluke sub. So granted, once again, at if you're betting Zalal at plus money, I definitely still think there is probably value there, but it just wasn't enough for me to personally take the shot. Also, one quick note as well. Zalal is a practicing Muslim as well, pretty heavily. And we know even in guys like Bilal Muhammad, who trains pretty heavily, even through Ramadan. I was listening to an interview recently. Zalal absolutely did zero training during Ramadan, which was roughly about a month or so ago. And so that ultimately leaves maybe about 4 to 6 weeks to assume he's been training hard, but he literally admitted that he did absolutely nothing during Ramadan. So once again, I don't like the handicap on intangibles. I don't like to look into interviews too hard. I just thought that was maybe a slight important to note in terms of this fight. But in terms of how it stylistically plays out, I mean, I think if it's largely on the feet, Jordan Griffin does have some pop at some times. We've seen him hurt some guys, but largely he's going to be a guy who's going backwards. As long as you give the guy the proper respect, which Zalal should do here, in my opinion, and just strike from the outside and completely avoid the grappling, it's a fight he definitely should win. But it's one of those situations, man, where I cannot necessarily trust it, at least at that price. So I am picking Zalal. I believe he did just flip to favorite money as well, but
yeah, he did.
I'm picking Zalal for the win, but no bet for me.
All right, that makes sense. Lags, how about you?
So, John, you alluded to this on the recap on Monday that this fight was going to be similar to one that we just previously had, and that's how I thought when I was breaking down the fight. So, I thought this fight was a lot similar to the Courtney Casey Jillian Robertson fight. I mean, you got the younger, hungrier fighter coming in who willingly takes down the opponent who has little to no takedown defense. I mean, I think it's also 39%, same as Courtney Casey. So,
yeah, and
he's got a 20% accuracy. So, I don't really see this fight hitting the mat unless it's like a fluke trip or something like that, or unless Zalal is taking him down. So I mean, if it stays on the feet, I think he's just going to be the faster guy moving in and out, and he can outpoint him to a decision. So, I mean, I like Zalal, but currently at -125, I'm not going to bet him.
Yeah, I hear you there. It kind of makes sense. Quinn, how about you?
So I'm going to go against the grain here. My pick is going to be Jordan Griffin. I don't like either guy at all. Zalal's first fight was absolutely hilarious to me. I mean, Lingo is just absolute trash can, and he was turning Zalal into a wrestler, man. I mean, Zalal was shooting for his life there. It was crazy. I mean, I was when I was first watching it, I was kind of confused. I was like, man, this guy has a massive striking advantage, and he's shooting. I just don't think that he really liked Lingo's pressure. And when he was on top, I was not impressed with Zalal's top game at all. I mean, he made so many defensive mistakes, put his hands down on the mat in guard, which you're going to get subbed by any good BJJ player doing that. He was putting in weird Darce chokes and turning the wrong way to finish them. So I just don't trust his ground game that well at all. If you were to tell me that Zalal was not going to grapple here and just strike, I would probably have played him, but I just can't trust that at all. And I think that we're getting a pretty small sample size on Zalal here in general. Like you guys all touched on, Griffin can't win rounds. I mean, at all. He can't defend takedowns. And I don't trust Zalal's fight IQ to just keep this standing. So I do think that Jordan Griffin is live here to get a sub. Like I think that his last couple of opponents were much better grapplers, much better wrestlers than Zalal is. So I really do think this is a fight that Jordan Griffin can just lock in a sub. I believe Lingo actually had him in a guillotine and just didn't finish it. And I do believe that Griffin will finish that if given the opportunity. And
from side control? From side control?
No, you know what I mean.
No, I know.
But yeah, side control. That's hilarious. But I also, and just to reiterate on Luke's point, I mean, if Zalal hasn't been training, that motherfucker's gonna gas. If this is wrestle heavy, he's gonna gas. So I definitely am not playing Zalal at all. And I was actually looking at playing Griffin's sub prop, but I just don't know if I want to. I just don't know if I want to sweat that. I mean, I got burned on props pretty bad last week. So this is a past fight for me, but I would not be surprised at all if Zalal just ran into a sub here. So the pick for me is Jordan Griffin by second round sub.
All right, Quinn. That makes sense. You're going to go on an island here. That's fine.
Yeah.
So next fight up, we got Takashi Sato taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. I'm happy C's not here because this is his boy, and I'm gonna shit on him a little bit right now. I played Sato for 1.25 units at -125. Pretty much, I don't like Ramiz's game really at all. Like, he got good submission grappling, but if you actually look at like how he gets takedowns, he basically sprints at his opponents like a bull seeing red. Like, he doesn't really set up entries ever. His level changes aren't fast, and it's like, I get how some people are playing Ramiz. They watch tape on LFA, and it's like, oh, he landed takedowns against everybody he fought in LFA. But it's like, the guys he fought in LFA aren't sniffing the UFC. Like, there's a reason they're not in the UFC, because they can't stuff those takedowns. And, like, I'm not saying Sato is the best defensive grappler, but if he hasn't made, like, major changes to, his wrestling, I don't see how he gets him down with any consistency. Like, maybe, once or twice over 3 rounds. But he's also shown kind of a weak gas tank. And we saw Sato, he does give his back, which is concerning when he gets taken down. But, we saw him go 4 rounds with Glyco Franca, and like Franca eventually subbed him. But Franca is a better wrestler and a better black belt than Ramiz is. And like, we saw Sato actually be able to fight his submission attempts for a while there. We saw Bilal struggle to take him down a bit, and Bilal's a way better wrestler than Ramiz is. And so it's like, and to what CWU just said, Sato has a bunch of wins by KO, and if you actually like look at Ramiz's stand-up, he's so hittable in space. Like the guy has no head movement at all. He just basically walks forward and looks for KOs, and if he does not get them, he loses, or looks for a takedown, I should say. And he doesn't have a great gas tank. So ultimately, it's like I kind of think Ramiz's best win condition is a first-round sub. I don't think you can like cap a percentage on that higher than like 25, maybe 30%, but 30% would be really high. And so, like, I'm willing at minus 125 with a superior striker and a guy who's like a black belt in judo to take the chance that he can survive the early going and take over this fight. Joe, how about you?
So look, let's talk about how Ramiz has 55 seconds of ring time since Crocs were cool. This guy has 55 seconds of time spent in an MMA ring since 2018. Okay, so plus let's talk about the narrative around cardio fighters coming out of Fortis. They've not exactly shown that they've had a lot of cardio, pandemic wise. So you got that Fortis narrative. Again, I don't know if that will or will not translate. I sure as hell have not been impressed by the cardio of Fortis fighters, of late. So you've got that narrative. Look, I'm not in love with Sato. He has fought a lot tougher competition. I mean, getting finished by Bilal in round 3 is not the worst thing in the world. What I would like to know, and hopefully one of you guys can answer this, how long has Sato been in the U.S.? Because his camp is a Tokyo-based training camp. So, I mean, is this something where he arrived this week? Has he been in the U.S. for a few weeks? I mean, that kind of might slant me towards, feeling better about Sato.
Is saying that he's saying that he trains at Sanford MMA, which I believe is Florida-based. So I guess he's been over here for a bit.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate that. So, yeah, I mean, look, my lean would be Sato here. I don't like this fight enough to bet it, just because there's too many unknowns. But there is some strong narrative against the Fortis MMA fighter. I mean, lack of fight time, lack of a cardio among his teammates. I have to question what type of training these guys are getting. So I don't have any play that I like here, but I would lean Sato for the win.
Thanks, Joe. Luke, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so outside of the main event, I think this is actually probably the fight I'm most looking forward to from like an intrigue perspective. Like, to be honest, I think this is one of those fights where I think you could actually have had value on both guys, given if you pulled the trigger at the right time. To your point, John, like maybe around that minus 125, minus 122, I think you're getting value on Sato. But also, I think if you pulled the trigger early on Ramiz at like maybe plus 140, plus 150, I think you're probably getting some value there as well. I guess my big intrigue into this fight is, to your point, John, I mean, Sato he's actually a second-degree judo black belt. And the big thing I noticed about Sato and on tape is that, he's kind of got, not to make a direct comparison, but he's kind of got that Gunnar Nelson southpaw. He's going to bounce on his feet a little bit and then kind of dart in. He's got a nice jab. His left cross is just nasty. He's not necessarily a one-punch guy, but he's got some just really solid sting on the end of his punches. And I mean, largely, his takedown defense has held up. So bringing me to Ramiz real quick, and I know, Quinn, you'll appreciate this as us being two jiu-jitsu type guys. The dude won IBJJF gold last year as a purple belt in a no-gi tournament. Like, this dude's grappling is legit. Like, it's solid. What's that?
Talking about Ramiz?
Yeah.
He's a purple belt?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So obviously he's not a black belt, at least from what I saw. He's not a black belt, but like, I mean, the dude's, I mean, to win a tournament at IBJJF in no gi, I think it's one of the most prestigious things you can do. So, and even through the tape I was picking up, like the dude's jits is solid. So I think it's really one of those striker versus grappler matchups. Like I said, I know Sato does have that judo background as well. So I guess the interesting thing to me here is how is Ramiz's wrestling, because historically hasn't been great, but I think if he can kind of survive that range distance game that Sato's going to play, I think Ramiz definitely could get a sub. But I also think if this fight kind of stays at range largely for 15 minutes, it probably should be Sato all day. So it's one of those fights where, like I said, I think if you got Sato around near pick'em, or if you got Ramiz near around plus 150, I mean, I think you got value really on either side because it's a really close fight, a really good fight, one I'm looking forward to. I'm actually going to pick Sato to weather that storm and win on the cards here.
Nice. Lags, what do you got for us?
So it's a pass for me, actually. So similar to the first fight of the night, I just can't. I don't really like the debuting fighter here, and I can't really trust the few fight veteran here in Sato. I mean, I don't really like anything about Sato's game, and I don't think, as Luke touched on, I don't think Ramiz's wrestling is going to be good enough here to get Sato to the mat. So I think the under is a good look, as I saw Ryan touched on in the chat. I think the under 2.5 at minus 140 is a good look, but other than that, it's a pass for me.
How about you, Quinn?
Yeah, I'm trying to find value like anywhere here, and like I don't even like the underplays like at all. Like
Yeah.
I do think it's under, but I don't think there's any value here. So I watched Ramiz gas out like after the first round. I don't remember what fight it was, but he gassed out bad, really, really bad, and he was eating bombs. He was eating like major bombs, like up against the fence. Like it was crazy. I was shocked that he was still standing. I can't play a fighter that gasses that bad. Like that's like a golden rule. Like you cannot play a fighter that gasses like that, especially coming in on debut. Like I touched earlier on USADA. I don't know if he's on the sauce, but that's just another like huge red flag and a pass. Like you don't want to be betting these debut fighters that you watch tape on and they gas. Like it's just not a good idea for you to put your money on that. I like Sato here. I'm not a fan of Sato. I'm not a fan of anyone that loses the first round of Ben Saunders. I mean, that was just ridiculous. Like that was just like I had a bet on Sato there, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing here? You know, I really don't think that he's like a bad fighter, but he hasn't really perfected his game at all. I mean,
enough.
What?
He's not active enough in the cage. I don't mean like fighting. He's just not like busy at all.
Yeah, he's not busy at all. He's extremely low volume. He's pretty hittable. I mean, he doesn't really go for takedowns. I mean, I think he's good. I think he's good enough on the mat here to not get subbed. I watched that Glyco Franco fight, and I watched a couple of his Pancreas fights, and and he does have some pretty good judo takedowns here. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to get on top. But it's a complete pass fight for me. I mean, I don't see how you can trust your money with both guys. I mean, maybe if you got Sato here at plus money, which I know we were kind of hoping that it would trend that way, but it didn't. Also, another thing that we kind of talked about quite a bit in the chat is Ramiz doesn't really put hooks in, like at all, when he's controlling or getting the back.
He doesn't really body triangle much.
Yeah. So like, and Sato's, you know, he's decent on the mat. He's not bad on the mat at all. So that just screams pass fight for me here. And like, I was hoping that the under would be plus money. Maybe I was thinking about hitting that, but I'm not going to play that at minus 130. Like there's absolutely no way. So I'm going to go with Sato by knockout. Not knockout, Sato by decision. Cause I saw Ramiz eating bombs in round 3 against that guy, and he just kept coming and actually landed 2 takedowns in the third round of that fight too. So I really do think that he has quite a big chin. But yeah, it's definitely a pass for me.
Nice, Quinn. I'm not going to
funny.
Steve's saying we should talk about how people are throwing darts on Ramiz here.
That's a dart. That's a huge dart.
But we're not gonna disparage the community.
Whenever you're throwing money on a fighter who gasses after the first round, you're throwing a fucking dart.
But anyway, we move on to the next fight. A guy I lost money on in his last fight. I think a couple of us might have lost some money on him. We got Felipe Lins taking on Tanner Boser. Joe, what do you got from here?
Yeah, we got the bulldozer who, impressively went the distance with Cyril Gahn. And I honestly believe that Gahn is a better prospect than Rosenstruck. You know,
Oh yeah.
I like him a lot as a fighter, and the fact that he was able to survive, you know, was good, surviving 3 rounds. Now, if you also look on his record, you'll notice that he's the rare heavyweight point fighter. He have a leg kick finish, which is kind of interesting.
I think he's got 2 of them.
Oh, he's got 2 leg kick finishes?
Yeah.
Wow, I knew he had one. You know, Lynn's on the other hand, the $1 Million Man. I don't know, man. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but and I don't know what the testing standards were in the PFL.
Yeah, Joe.
He looks like a completely different fighter. He has the speed, but the build isn't there, right? I mean, he looks. If you look at his Tapology photo, he looks. We could say he looks.
Yeah, you could say it.
You know, he looks really ripped. I gotta watch my language because sometimes they do the RotoWire. It's all PG. You know, so he's ripped in that photo, and he looks like a different fighter. Look, he showed some good things against Arlovsky, but Arlovsky just schooled him. I mean, you know, so this is essentially an even money fight. I don't love it because, you know, I got a heavyweight point fighter going against a guy that, you know, may or may not be off the juice. You know, he showed some good things against Arlovsky, but not enough. Did he have octagon jitters? Plus, this guy's got $1 million in the bank. I mean, you know, from winning at PFL. So, you know, what's he doing in the UFC? Did he burn through that already? I mean, how much does property in fucking Brazil cost? So, you know, you've got all these things like, you know, you're looking at, you got some narrative here. I'm gonna lean Boser. I mean, if he survived 3 rounds against Cyril Gunn, I don't see how he's gonna get finished by Lynn. So I haven't looked at the bet. Boser by decision, but if I was going
25,
yeah, I would probably lean in that direction.
Thanks, Joe. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I think this is a definition of a 50-50 fight, so I think the line is currently correct. I'll be the first to say I have never been high on Felipe Lins. I'm not going to try to sound like some wise guy and say I bet Arlovsky in the last fight, but I did bet the over there, thinking that Arlovsky could definitely outpoint him there. My biggest issue with Felipe Lins, I think, is what a lot of people are making the mistake of, at least in terms of the whole PFL championship. I mean, he beat a roided up Alex Nicholson, who's a 205er who was fighting at heavyweight, who just threw bombs at him. He fought an over-the-hill fat wrestler in Gerald Rochal, who's also a UFC reject. And then I can't remember who the last guy he fought, or Josh Copeland, the guy who's a wife beater or whatever, who's absolutely terrible, who actually at one point ran at him with his hands at his side. Like, this guy has beaten absolutely nobody. That is the easiest $1 million you can get in the world. And then if you even go back a little bit further to his Bellator fights when he was fighting at 205, which in my opinion is actually his rightful weight class, he got absolutely schooled by Vadim Nemkov and another Russian guy, I believe, who just had exponentially faster hands than me, or faster hands than him, I should say. So in my opinion, Felipe Lins is like this overhyped job that I just don't understand what people see in him at all. But then again, I guess with that being said, based on me having confidence on Arlovsky in the last fight as well, people would say, all right, well, Boser's kind of this outside point fighter as well. But the problem with Boser to me is, at least in terms of technical striking, I think Arlovsky is an exponentially technical striker, a better technical striker than Tanner Boser. He kind of just wings big hooks and just drops his head. Like, I know he has a really solid leg kick game, so he could definitely just win this on volume and beat the leg up here. But actually, in this particular case, in terms of hand speed and actual technical boxing, I think Felipe Lins is a little bit better. So I just gave him the slight advantage here. But by no means am I high on this guy at all. And I think this is just 100% the definition of a pass. So no bet for me, but I'm picking Felipe Lins.
Lex, how about you?
So I guess I'll go contrarian to Luke here. I actually like Boser in the spot. I mean, he didn't really impress me against that fight against Arlovsky. And I think 3 months down the road here, I don't really see what's going to improve. I don't think his cardio is going to get any better, and I don't think his output's going to improve exponentially. So, I mean, I think Boser, if anything, is a higher output, more durable Arlovsky. I think somebody touched on it, that Boser's been to a decision in almost all of his fights.
Yeah.
So I like the Bozer decision line. Joe was talking about it. I was saying it was plus 125. I like that a lot. And I think even at minus 110 on the money line, I think Bozer's got a lot of value.
Quinn, how about you?
Yeah, I like Bozer a lot here. The Linz fight versus Arlovsky really just put it into perspective for me. Like the type of fighter that he is. I mean, Joe touched on it perfectly. I mean, he looked like a completely different fighter coming into the UFC, and his run with the PFL. I mean, he fought absolute trash cans and was gifted that $1 million. I mean, when you're fighting Josh Copeland, and I mean, like that's just the lowest of the low here. I really like Bozer a lot. I love his leg kick game. I really like his stance switches. I think he is. I like his head movement a lot. I like his athleticism. I think he's going to beat quite a bit of heavyweights here. I really. I mean, Linz, like, I don't think there's much improvements. I mean, he fought like a month and a half ago. Yeah. So like you pretty much saw what you're going to get there. And Bozer, he lands in higher volume. He doesn't get hit as often. He's obviously faced the higher competition. I mean, to go 3 rounds of gain like that, I mean, he was eating some flush shots, especially towards like the end of the second and third round. He was getting lit up by gain, and he was still coming forward, and which I thought was like really impressive. I think he can have a lot of success with his leg kicks here. I think he can. He's going to press forward and out volume Linz to a decision. I think Bozer has high potential. I just think he ran into one of the best prospects in the heavyweight division right now. So I really like Bozer to get the decision win here. I have quite a bit of money on the line for a fight that we'll talk about later. So I've been kind of just like not really wanting to play too many spots here. But I might end up playing Bozer here. I mean, I might. I think we're getting.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
At him at evens. So the pick for me is Bozer.
Yeah. So I bet Lynch against Arlovsky, and like you, Luke, you made some good points to me pre-fight with that fight too that I should have like listened to. That proved to be pretty prescient. I just thought I liked Lynch's counterpunching like quite a bit, and like the way Arlovsky dives into the pocket kind of recklessly that he get clipped a few times. Turns out huge speed gap between Andre Arlovsky and the clowns he was fighting in PFL. But, I mean, I like Bozer. And, like, I actually kind of want to bet him here. But I'm not sure I want to bet him here. Because, like, it's like what you said, Luke. Like, Arlovsky's far more technical than Bozer is. But, they have some similar attributes. Like, I think Bozer makes decent reads. I just don't think he has, like, the technical acumen Arlovsky does. He's got good leg kicks. Like, I kind of trust him to, land his shots. Like, he's got a more functional game than Linz. Like, if one of them is going to stay back and only land 20 to 30 strikes for 15 minutes, I kind of think it's far more likely to be Linz than Bozer. But, yeah, like, he has no power. And so it's like he's not an output machine. Like, it's okay, but he's not going to go out there and land 100 strikes in 3 rounds. So, like, I kind of lean Bozer pretty significantly to win the fight. But, like, I feel like I can't cap him better than, like 55% at most, just because it's like if you don't have like finishing upside and you're not super high volume, well, you can be better, but in a low volume affair, it's going to be kind of dicey anyway. And Lynch, if he cracks you once or twice, you might lose the fight. So like I'm kind of still hoping Lynch moves to big favorite money. Like it happened real late against Arlovsky. I think like the day of the fight, that Wednesday, I think it was the Wednesday card, he shot up from like minus 150 to like minus 230. So I'm kind of hoping we'll see something like that again here. But yeah, I like Bozer in the spot too.
I mean, on one more point, like Bozer has like really solid head movement. Like his defensive striking is like really, really good. And Linz just like he leaps in like quite a bit of hooks. So like I wouldn't be surprised if he just wasn't really landing that often on Bozer. Like Bozer has pretty underrated defensive striking in my opinion. So like I really think that is another good angle for him here. So.
And with that, we move on. We got Lewis, Violent Bob Ross Pena against Kama the Death Star Worthy. Luke, you got something for me in this fight?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty straightforward fight in the sense that, a guy in Kama Worthy who's I think you got to give the guy a little bit credit in terms of if you've really done a deep dive into tape in him. I think he's actually really improved his takedown defense, and a guy who's taken just absolutely brutal knockouts, like 4 like just complete flat lines, like not TKOs or anything. I mean, the dude is just out cold. And so I don't think Kama Worthy is some overtly strong fighter, but I'm going to give the guy credit in the sense that I think he actually probably is the best he has looked in his entire career right now. And a guy in Luis Pena, I'm not very high on either. I actually cashed a nice dog bet on Matt Favola against him. But this is one of those fights where I think if he can avoid the big shot of Kamaworthy and work his wrestling, and that's, I guess, my big question here. I know Pena has landed a takedown, I believe, in at least 5 of his 6 UFC fights, but I think it's only been the one. He's never been a guy who's been a takedown guy in volume or has shown a ton of technical proficiency in terms of his offensive wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is actually pretty decent, but once again, I mean, we not to get too off course, we talk about a guy in Mark De La Rosa who's got solid jiu-jitsu, but he only lands takedowns at a 15% clip. So that's, I guess, what kind of worries me here, that if this fight is largely on the feet, I do think obviously Pena has that range or whatever, but he's not a guy who particularly uses it overtly well. And so, like I said, I mean, a guy in Kamaworthy, the dude throws bombs. So, I mean, if this fight stays standing for 15 minutes, I think it could play out a lot closer than odds indicate. But I mean, in terms of if this fight does hit the floor, I think Pena does have levels better in terms of grappling than his opponent. So I'm going Pena, but I think it's another one of these fights where I do not think you can be laying over 2-1 on Luis Pena, because I think it's a fight that could play out a lot closer than odds indicate.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, Luke pretty much touched the nail on the hammer, I guess. I mean, I can't really trust Pena at a 29.4% takedown accuracy, so I don't think the fight's going to be playing down on the mat as much. I mean, he only averages 1 takedown per fight. So, I mean, if it gets to the mat, I think that could be it. I don't think Worthy's defensive responsibly, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I definitely can't lay minus 300 on Pena here in the spot. I'm not, similar to what Luke said, I'm not really sold on him yet. So, and no way I could be backing Kamaworthy here. I would probably need at least like plus 300 to back him.
Yeah, that's fair. Real quick, before we continue with this fight, guys in the chat who are saying Worthy Smith was fixed. Devin Smith got finished by John Gunther regionally. So, no, the fight wasn't fixed. He's just not very Anyway. Quinn, what do you got?
I like Pena here a lot. I think the grappling is like significantly different here. Like I think he's much better. Worthy pretty much has no grappling at all. And I do like Pena's like tricky takedown game in the clinch. I think it's pretty tricky, and I don't think that Worthy is really going to know how to defend it. So I personally really, really like Pena here by sub. I actually had commented on one of his posts earlier in the week, and I was like, yo, this guy has no grappling. Sub this dude. And he commented thumbs up on it. So I think he knows and did tape. I don't rate Kamaworthy at all. Like, I don't even know how he's in the UFC. I don't know how he knocked out Devontae Smith. I lost quite a bit of money on that fight. I do think he has the power edge here, Kamaworthy. I think that's really the only attribute he has. But Pena's I don't think Pena's ever been finished. I mean, Pena has a damn good chin, so I'm not too worried about that. And Pena's competent enough on the feet to make it a good fight. I mean, and you can't trust Worthy's chin. I mean, he got knocked out by Billy Quarantillo. I mean, that's a pretty bad look. So I was looking originally to play. Pena by sub. He opened up by sub at like plus 465, and I was all over that line. Well, my book opened him up by sub at plus 250. There's no way I'm playing that. So it's a complete pass fight for me. But I do think we see Pena get on track here and choke him out. So I'm gonna go with Pena by sub.
Joe, how about you?
So Quinn, how do you play a Death Star against a guy that works with brushes and chalk? Ross, look, he wins the fights he's supposed to win. I mean, all his wins were essential layups, right? I mean, nothing about the guy has really impressed me. Losing to Trezano, I'm just not impressed with the guy. Now, not to say that I'm impressed with Worthy, Worthy was actually knocked out in 2012 by Paul Felder.
Yeah.
In 2012. And I'm just not putting a lot in this whole Pittsburgh camp that Karma Worthy fights out of. By the way, he was plus 640 when he knocked out Devontae Smith. I think the knockout line was like 15-1 or something crazy like that. Worthy by knockout. It was just an insane price. I want to really give him a shot, just simply because and this is my inherent bias against Luis Pena. However, unless he gets caught, unless Worthy is just this, remarkably improved fighter. And if you look at he's on a 6-fight winning streak, but if you look at some of these guys he fought, we're talking Kansas City here.
Yep.
He's not fought really anyone that good. So I guess I'll have to go. I'll have to give a lean to Violent Bob Ross. I will tell you this, though. I will have a few shares of Worthy in DraftKings.
Nice, Joe. So I have kind of like similar feelings about Pena to you, Joe. It's weird because I see the talent. There's clearly talent there. I think when he's in top position, he's got really strong grappling from there. He knows how to use his length well, even when he's on bottom. But he does so much stupid shit. It's unbelievable. He gave away the Frivola fight by basically just refusing to throw in round 3 and kind of attacking weird subs on Frivola from bottom in round 1 instead of sweeping him, even though it was clear Frivola couldn't keep him down there. And the Trezano fight, it was pretty clear that he probably was the more skilled fighter, but he kept trying to body lock him and take him down. And Trezano's a pretty responsible defensive grappler and just wouldn't go down. And he just kind of gave away the fight by doing nothing. And he does that a lot. I do think, I couldn't find much footage of Worthy grappling. And the bit I did, he was a goddamn disaster. So it's I think if Pena gets him down, Worthy's going to be in big trouble. But to Luke's point, it's he's improved a bit, and that was a couple years ago. He's got a bad chin, but all of his knockouts, I believe, are at 145, and this is at 155. And Pena isn't really throwing howitzers out there. So it's he could knock him out, but it's not super reliable. And I actually kind of think in terms of technical striking, Worthy's as good or better than Pena. So it's if Pena does struggle to get him down, I think this could get real dicey. But all of that said, it's from what I've seen, I can't bet Pena, but I do kind of think Pena is likely to get him down and just dominate him from there. And probably, I said to you, Quinn, the reason I'm not playing sub is just because I can 100% picture Pena with a body triangle on his back, just smashing his face into the ground. So it's going to be one of those weird 50-50 areas. So yeah, Pena's my pick, but if Pena's actually, this might be a decent live spot. If Pena is not getting him down, you'll probably still get, even if Worthy wins the first round, some juice on him or some plus money on him live. So I don't know, something worth watching. So with that, we're going to take a brief respite from picks here. So last week, for anybody who's watching or who watched last week, our boy C. Hansen, who's been popping in and out of the comments, doing whatever he's doing for work, gave out a contest, and it was if Bobby Green or Jim Miller wins by submission, somebody would win $500 if they liked, followed, and retweeted. Now, 82 people retweeted and liked. 4 of those people were stupid enough not to follow, so they got thrown out of the pool. But 78 of you are in the pool. Jim Miller did win by submission. We told you so. I hope you guys actually played it. So we're gonna jump in here now. I've put everybody into a randomizer, and we're going to do this live right now. So 2 seconds.
That's mighty generous.
Can you guys see this?
There we go.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
lovely.
All right, here we go. So everybody's in here right now. Oh, Christ.
There we go. I see it now.
Okay. All right. Pick a random name coming at you right now.
There we go.
Good luck, everyone.
And the winner is going to be Jeremy Brand, who is, I believe, the CEO of MMA Sucker. And can someone take a quick snapshot of that? So in case he's not watching us, I can put it out there on Twitter. But Jeremy, if you are watching us, put just message C, and he will arrange payment with you. And if not, we will get in touch with you. But Jeremy Brand is our winner.
Well, is that a lump sum or is he going to get paid in installments?
Oh, no, he's getting a lump sum. He's getting a lump sum.
All right.
Congrats, Jeremy.
Wow, way to go, dude.
Congrats.
That's
Now we move on to the main card. Sean Woodson, Juliana Rosa, Juicy J. Also, another fight, by the way. The line on this jumped to about minus 510 about 2 hours ago. That is currently sitting.
FanDuel's still sitting it.
FanDuel hanging Woodson at minus 370 at the moment.
Yep.
If you guys have access to FanDuel and want to throw a parlay in there. Lags, I'll start with you here. You got anything?
I mean, other than parlaying Woodson here, I think at minus 370, if you have it on FanDuel, I think that would probably be the spot. But I think at minus 500, I think it's a little crazy. But I'm not touching it. No way.
Quinn, how about you?
What fight are we on? Sorry.
We are on Woodson. Woodson, Juicy J.
Oh, okay, yeah. Arosa's horrible. I mean, what is he? 2 and whatever. I don't know. In his last 5, has not had a good run at all. I honestly didn't even tape Arosa here. I will never bet Arosa ever again. Going to Sean Woodson, I love this guy. I was not that high on him after his Contender Series fight, but I'm really, really glad that I did tape on him. This guy is legit. I mean, he's 46-3 as an amateur boxer. He has some absolutely fantastic hands. He is one of the only fighters that that I really enjoy watching. Moving backwards when he's striking, he does very, very well with that. I love his combinations. He does this. He times his knees very, very well, and then does Adesanya does this. He'll throw a knee and then he'll throw his left straight right after it, and it's so fast and quick, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think this guy has very, very high upside. I was looking at parlaying him. I'm pissed we lost that fight with Kyle Nelson. I hope they rebook it, but I just think Woodson has a lot of potential. I mean, he's very, very tall and lanky for the division. He has solid takedown defense. He's really hard to hold down. I mean, with his limbs, I mean, he has a really, really good base. He's young. He's going to be improving. And like I said, his striking is absolutely legit. I mean, Rosa, I mean, he's been knocked out multiple times. He's so hittable. I do think that he probably is going to give Woodson a little bit more trouble than Nelson would have on the feet. Just because I think he's a little bit better striker than Nelson, but Woodson's gonna dominate him and probably knock him out. So I'm gonna go with Woodson by second round KO.
Joe, what do you got for us?
So we got Juicy J. A trains at the acclaimed Yakima MMA camp with the Dreamcatcher Spawn and Frosty Foster. For all I know, it might be a good camp. I just like saying Yakima. So we got Juicy J against the freakishly tall Woodson, who at 145 is 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. Man, that is hardcore at 145. And look, Juicy J is actually pretty tall for 145 as well at 6 foot, but he's at about a 5-inch reach disadvantage. Look, I don't think Juicy J is the worst fighter in the world. I've certainly seen worse, and honestly, he's probably the star at Yakima MMA in Yakima, Washington, on Yakima Avenue. So I certainly can, see him being the star at that camp. I don't give him. Look, Woodson should win this fight. I think he's a much better play on DraftKings. Obviously, now given that they're going to keep his salary the same, than betting him at this insane number. I mean, minus 550 on DraftKings Sportsbook. That's a little insane. I don't think I could lay that kind of wood. But I definitely see this guy as being one of the higher owned fighters on DraftKings, just because of, it's another one of those circumstances where, you've got a guy at a decent salary that had a replacement that's much weaker than his original opponent. So I certainly see this as a play on DraftKings, but I can't get behind betting 550 on a fighter who trains at Yakima MMA in Yakima, Washington on Yakima Avenue.
Thanks. Luke, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much I'm not going to go too deep into it. You guys touched on a lot in terms of Sean Woodson. I actually put out a tweet the other day. I think Sean Woodson's striking actually reminds me a lot of an old school Nick Diaz. Like he's not a big power guy, he's going to put that volume in your face, really long, fight long, and then once he's got you hurt up top, he's going to go downstairs and dig the body. Like, I really love the dude striking, especially as you guys touch on, like at 145. The dude's just crazy long for the division, but in full transparency, in the original iteration of this matchup with Kyle Nelson, I was playing the under 2.5 just because I think this dude has massive holes in the grappling. I've seen him make the exact same mistake twice in his last 2 fights, one in the Contender Series fight, and then once against Kyle Bochniak as well, where as soon as he's gotten taken down, or even if opponents haven't been able to take him down quick, he immediately goes to this chair position, essentially, where he's on his knees and then he just posts both of his hands. And so in that Contender Series fight, we saw him get his back taken pretty much and controlled the entire first round. The exact same thing happened in the second round of that fight, and then he ultimately ended up breaking the body triangle and kneeing the guy in the face. But then against Kyle Bochniak, he actually did the exact same thing to him. The difference was Kyle Bochniak just didn't put his far side hook in, but literally it would have been the same song and dance in that fight if Kyle Bochniak was a better grappler. So listen, I love this Sean Woodson guy just as much as you guys do in terms of his striking, but man, if this guy faces like a relatively competent grappler, and that's why I thought that Kyle Nelson matchup was actually going to be a little bit dicey, because Nelson actually was a purple belt who's got a pretty good back take. So, if he was able to get Woodson down and take his back, it might have been a quick song and dance, and Nelson can crack at least early in that first round too. So like I said, man, I really like this Sean Woodson guy, but I would pump the brakes a little bit in terms of his opponents next. I don't think Julian Erosa is going to give him too much trouble. I think he should probably run through Julian Erosa. This is like his 3rd stint in the UFC now, which has to be some kind of record. So yeah, he should run through him. But I'd be a little hesitant in terms of betting Sean Woodson going forward if he's facing a guy who's got some decent wrestling and some decent grappling as well. But yeah, I really like the kid as well.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much nailed it on the head there, Luke. I pretty much obviously can't play at minus 500. I'm an absurdly big fan of his striking, like so absurdly that I won't even say it on here yet because I'm afraid I'll just scare people from ever watching the show again with how hot the take is. But I do like his striking quite a bit. But yeah, I have the same concerns. Like pretty much, he's only started, I think, and if anybody wants to correct me, they can. I think he started training MMA though less than 5 years ago. So he's made some like real serious strides in that period of time. But it's basically impossible to bet him against anyone with grappling upside until we actually see those strides in play. And like I wouldn't touch him, but I don't totally hate Erosa here, to be honest with you. Like I would never bet him, but like Erosa is an okay submission grappler. Like if Woodson makes a mistake, like he could get his hooks in there, or if he has a moment, he does, like he will throw heavies. So I don't know. Woodson should roll through him. I like Woodson a lot, but yeah, pretty much exactly what you said, Luke. So from there, we will be moving on to the next card, which is John Vellante, Long Island's own, taking on Maurice the Crochet Boss Green. What do you got for us, Joe?
Wow. So this is a really interesting fight. Like after a distinguished career at light heavyweight, we have Gian Vellante moving up to heavyweight here. And that was tongue-in-cheek, as you probably well know. It was not that distinguished career. Gian Vellante is not the smartest fighter. You mentioned Long Island. He commutes from Wantagh to Belmore to train, and every day he does that, the IQ in both places goes up. The other thing is, he actually, look at his stat sheet. He had a draw in a grappling match against I've fallen but I can't get up Chris Carmozzi, who actually got the last laugh because his wife is hotter than balls. But he was not drawing in a grappling match with Chris Carmozzi. I mean, look, I don't love the Crochet Boss either. I mean, he is training at Jackson Wink. He's got his back up against the wall coming off 2 L's. I think even in the heavyweight ranks, if If he can't beat Volante, I mean, exit visas are imminent here. I don't love the number, but I have to think this is a fight for the Crochet boss, who's a huge 6'7", who's fighting a guy that's, hasn't fought in a year, that I still can't get. He had a draw in a grappling match against Carmozzi. I mean, I honestly called his manager, Carmozzi, and said that he should get the endorsement for the clapper because that's how great his takedown defense was. I've fallen and I can't get up on Chris Carmozzi, a former UFC fighter with a wife as hot as balls. So I honestly, I've got to give this to Maurice Green, but I just don't see this as being, I see this as being a slam dunk. Suntszu, can you join the club in sub vacation?
So I'll let so C put in it's a long story, but he put in a parlay on Ramiz sub round 1, Volante round 1 KO, and if it hit the first live show, he's taking everybody to it.
Wow. Okay. Look, I may have to change my routing here. I'd be surprised if Volante. Look, the guy's half Italian and half Polish. He makes himself an offer he can't understand. So I don't get, I don't know why Volante is doing this. I don't know if it's a paycheck, but I don't know if what's going to transfer from light heavy to heavy. Is he going to be faster? I don't think so. I mean, is he going to? He lost his last fight to a body punch, right? He lost to Salma Alvi. So I don't get it. I like the Crochet boss, but it's not exactly a ringing endorsement.
I hear that completely. What do you got for us, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, Joe touched on it pretty well. I mean, Volante's largely just been pretty much the same guy throughout his whole career. So this whole move to heavyweight, I guess I don't really see what the narrative is here. Is he going to be faster, as he touched on? No. Is his cardio going to be better? Absolutely not. His cardio was already absolutely terrible at 205. So you can't expect him to come out here and be freaking Lance Armstrong over the course of 15 minutes. So, but then again, I mean, I guess to give a little credence to Volante in terms of the Crochet boss, the biggest problem I've had with him historically, and we kind of touched on it last week in terms of Curtis Blades, is the dude is so big and long for the division. I actually think he has been taking his career more seriously. If you look at when he entered the UFC, he had a ton of body fat. It seems like he actually slimmed down a little bit. But the biggest problem I have with him is he's a guy who just, one, obviously does not have a strong grappling game. He's not a solid wrestler. He's not a big BJJ guy. He's not a big power guy. Okay, so if you're at the heavyweight division, what does that leave you with? Well, that leaves you with being a long guy who needs to work behind his jab. And what's the main thing that Maurice Green has shown over the course of his career? That he cannot work behind a jab. And that's ultimately why I bet Alexei Oleinik at plus 115 against him in his last bout, because he's another long guy who does not know how to utilize his tools. So, literally, I would not be surprised if Volante comes here and starches him because, like I said, the guy cannot utilize his reach. Now, am I telling you to run to the window to go bet John Volante? Absolutely not. This is the definition of a pass fight. But, I mean, laying over 2-1 on Maurice Green here is just absolutely ridiculous. I would not advocate anybody for doing that at all. So, once again, as to Joe's point, I think this is one of those fights where Maurice Green should roll, but he could also get starched here or make this fight a lot closer than it needs to be. So I'm picking Maurice Green, but definitely not a confident one.
How about you, Lex?
I mean, yeah, Luke pretty much said everything there, except the ending, though. I actually think Volante's – we touched on it a couple of days ago. I think he's live for a knockout, like we said. I think he's definitely live for a knockout in the first round. I definitely don't know how you could be betting Maurice Green here over minus 200. So, I mean, it's a total pass for me, but I think if you had to play anything on the fight, either the under 1.5 or Volante by KO at around plus 500, I think it is right now.
Quinn, what about you?
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys covered it pretty well, but Joe, I think you said something that was important. What does Volante have that really translates to heavyweight? This was a guy, I've seen some people talk about, he's going to have better cardio at heavyweight. It's is taking a guy who's 205 and now making him 245 going to increase his cardio? He's a notoriously not that hard of a worker. I don't.
The gas is pretty bad.
Yeah, like he
So,
gets out at with the 205-pound frame. He's really going to hold up. He's going to be like out there like Tony Ferguson when he's 245 now. Like I don't really, but
yeah.
I don't buy that. I say, and so it's like, yeah, legs. I agree he could knock him out. I actually don't hate that plus 500, but yeah. I mean, I think you guys all hit everything on the head. You know, Green's a big dude. He's been fighting at heavyweight for a while. We've seen him take heavyweight power for the most part. Volante's durability seems to be going. It's just.
I just don't think Green has the power to knock him out. So I just don't think what's his path to victory other than like I think a plus EV play here would be Volante KO or Green decision.
Or Green submission if Volante takes him down. He's got a decent.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I was looking at that. It's like plus 800 on FanDuel.
I just think I really, really wanted to like Volante in the spot because I really don't like.
But I just can't trust
Green
him.
isn't subbing shit.
Yeah.
See, that's what I think. So I think it's decision or Volante KO. So.
But yeah, so it's a pass for me. I don't have much to say. Everybody else kind of out of the park here. So we move on to what is at the moment my last play of the night. It's Brendan Allen, Kyle Daukaus. I've actually played Daukaus for a unit plus 245. I'll be honest, if you guys follow me aggressively on Twitter, I actually got a ton of pushback for this. But I was shitting on Brendan Allen pretty hard a couple months ago when he fought Tom Breeze about his grappling. And of course, as soon as he pounded him out of the mat, I had about 1 million people come at me about that. But I haven't really changed my opinion on it. I think he's an incredibly overrated grappler. You know, I'll say this for him. The best thing he does is that he pursues the takedown and passing position, very aggressively. And so, he's reliable to get takedowns and some top time. But you don't I've seen him. It'd be one thing if it was one fight, I saw him get swept out of mount or get swept out of a dominant position. I've literally seen it 5 or 6 times. I saw it multiple times against Fluffy Hernandez, multiple times against Tim Hiley. We saw it with Kevin Holland. And he's made improvements, but all 3 of those fights are in the last 2 years. The Holland fight, he went life and death. And literally, if Holland didn't fight like Kevin Holland, probably would have finished him multiple times in that fight. And so it's like, yeah, I do expect Allen's going to get Daukaus down and probably get him in a bad position here. But, Daukaus is actually a pretty similar fighter to Allen. He's another long, lanky guy who's great at getting and losing dominant positions. Both of them sacrifice dominant positions for guillotines all the time and just do stupid stuff, prioritizing submission over position. Yeah, it's possible Allen's just better and is a level higher and just comes in and washes him out completely. It wouldn't shock me. But in a fight where I don't think either guy's great at control and I expect both guys to have moments, you cannot tell me that Brendan Allen should be minus 300 in that kind of a fight. That's just kind of ridiculous to me. It's I have him at 60%, but I'm taking a shot at Daukaus here plus 245. I think he's going to have moments, and I actually think if there's any standing exchanges, he's likely to win them. So those are my thoughts. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I like Allen a fair amount here. Give me Rufus Sport over Martinez BJJ any day in terms of cams. What's really interesting about this fight is it could be a fun fight if it's on the ground. Like both guys have some ground game. It could be a really sticky fight if the wrestling is neutralized and both guys try to strike. I agree with the 3-1. I like this play on DraftKings for the grappling points that you're going to get. Plus, Allen in his first 2 fights has scored over 100 on DraftKings. So even at his elevated salary, you're looking at like 10 to 12x on the win side. It's a shame that these guys are fighting at the time that they are because, again, I do believe Daukaus has got some potential. He's a 9-0 fighter. I'd like to see him get another fight if he loses here. Allen has obviously fought the better competition. He was plus 135 underdog in both of his fights that he won against Kevin Holland and Tom Breeze. Tom Breeze has always been a bit of a head case. So, look, I liked what he did there, but, Breeze was certainly favored to win. And look, we can all agree that, Kevin Holland is quirky, but he's a pretty solid prospect. So those were 2 impressive wins. I do like Allen here. Look, I can't fault you for taking a stab. Especially if this fight is wrestling neutralized and it takes place standing. I do like Allen. No, not enough to make a bet at minus 300, but I would pick him for the win.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, not too much to add here. I guess I'm particularly not very high on either guy. I think both guys are walking KOs waiting to happen. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case here. But I guess to Joe's point, yeah, I mean, if we don't see any grappling, which I necessarily don't necessarily see happening, just because I think both guys are willing to accept bottom position. So I think we will see grappling at some points, but in terms of on the feet, I think actually Allen just is a little bit better. Like this Dawkins guy on, and that's not to shit on your play at all, John, because I think at least in terms of value, I think that's definitely where it is here. I definitely don't think you can lay minus 300 on Brendan Allen. I just think this Dawkins guy, he's just a funky, like awkward dude. Like he just doesn't seem very athletic. Like nothing he does is like overtly well. Like I know he's got like decent submission ability. Like I don't know. It's just kind of one of those.
To be honest, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, he just kind of reminds me like of a James Vick, kind of like he's just going to stand tall and just like fight. Obviously, James Vick in terms of technical striking is probably a little bit better, but like I don't know. It's just one of those situations where I think you could definitely hit this bet, John, and it'll look super sharp. But it's also one of those situations where I just think like Brendan Allen could also just take him down and sub him real quick. Because I also think, in fairness to Brendan Allen, I think this is also probably the best grappler that Dawkins is fighting by a very strong margin. Where I think largely the guys he's kind of fought on the regional scene just really have not had really any answer for him, where I think Brendan Allen actually will. So to your point, I don't hate the bet. I think that's probably where the value is, but I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, fair point, Luke. How about you, Lex?
So to what Ryan's brought up in the chat, Chase Hooper. I actually saw Chase Hooper was training a little bit with Sugar Sean O'Malley.
Oh God.
So that's something. But this probably total pass. I mean, I cannot trust Allen at minus 300, and I know little to nothing about Dawkins. I'm under 10 professional fights total, so total pass for me.
And how about you, Quinn?
So I definitely don't hate your Dawkins play. I actually think there's a few things that Dawkins does really well. For one, he's absolutely massive for middleweight. He's humongous. He fought at heavyweight before in the past, so I definitely think he's going to be the bigger, stronger guy. I think he's going to have definitely the better striking. I mean, Allen is literally a walking punching bag. The guy has no striking at all, and he just walks in with his chin high in the air and try to get the clinch. I don't really like Allen's wrestling at all. Like, I don't think he has very good wrestling. So to Joe's point, I could definitely see this. I could kind of see a stand-up fight, but I also do think that both guys are going to accept the bottom, just like what Luke said. So I do think we're going to see quite a bit of grappling here. I just personally rate Brendan's BJJ a lot better than a lot more than Dawkins's. I know he's pretty wild, but he will pass and he will go for subs. So I do think he's going to get it here, but Allen could get knocked out here. I mean, he has absolutely zero striking, and Dawkins, he has some decent straight punches. I mean, he has some power in his hand, so I could definitely see him tagging Allen here. But I do see the fight getting to the mat, and I do see Allen really doing well in top control. I don't trust Allen here as a 3-1 favorite at all. I mean, like I said, he has no striking. His wrestling is absolute trash, and he's pretty wild on the mat. I played Holland and Breeze versus him, and I'm still like salty about those bets. I mean, if Holland would have kept it on the feet and not done, like you said, Holland shit, he would have won that fight. I'd probably bet Holland again, to be honest with you.
Holland had him back twice. He should have finished him twice on the match.
Busted him up in the guard with that elbow too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Breeze, I mean, he shouldn't even taken that fight. I mean, I'm pretty sure like I don't remember exactly what happened, but he was like, I don't know if he was injured or he was super sick right before.
He had massive diarrhea. One of his buddies messaged me.
The reason why he took that fight is
on Twitter after it was over. And
yeah, the only reason why he took that fight is because he needed the money and he was on a layoff. I mean, so I don't really put much stock into that fight, but I do rate Allen's jiu-jitsu higher than Dawkins's. So I'm going to go with Allen, but if you're going to bet it, I mean, it's definitely a dog or pass fight here. I mean, there's no way you can play Allen as a 3-1 favorite. That line is absolutely crazy. So I do think you're getting some value here on Dawkins. but I am going to go with Brendan Allen. I think he'll get the sub at some point. So the pick for me is Allen.
All right. So with that, we come to the people's main event. We have Mickey Gall and Mike Platinum Perry. Joe, I got 2 questions for you on this one. The first one is, how do we rate Perry's new girlfriend versus the Platinum Princess? And the second one is, how do you see this fight?
Okay, so look, there is so much narrative around this fight. I honestly think that Mike Perry, with some of his decisions, is by far the least intelligent fighter in the UFC. The UFC had made their fighters take like a version of the Wonderlic. You'd get like a 2, right? Like they asked him what he thought about Roe v. Wade. He thought it was 2 methods to get across the Potomac. They asked him about euthanasia, and he said we should focus on the problem of American kids. I would love to see Perry and Volante face off in a spelling bee. Right? So I actually think that his new girlfriend is hotter. He refers to her as the goddess. She's been holding pads for him. He left his camp. The goddess is holding pads for him. He brought in to face the face Gall, who I think might have just got his black belt. He brought in a white and a blue belt.
Yep.
Between him. The goddess is going to be in his corner. I'm referring to as the goddess. She's going to be in his corner. He's not going to have like a proper corner man. I mean, like, come on. Now, with all that said, there's actually an arb in this fight. It's one I'm seriously thinking of pursuing. I see 2 outcomes of this fight that have a very high chance of occurring. I see Perry winning by knockout or Gall snatching a submission, right? I don't see this fight going to decision. I don't see Perry getting a submission. I don't see Gall getting a knockout. You could get if you could get Perry by knockout at -170, and you could buy that back, Gall by submission at +460. Now those lines have tightened up. Gall opened at like +500 by submission, and Perry was, I think, -140 for knockout. But I am seriously considering arbing that play. And again, you could do this with however you bet, units, dollars. You could bet essentially 1,700 to win 1,000 on Perry and buy back that $1,000, or buy back that 1,000, buy back that 1,700 for $369, right? So there is some arb opportunity to make a play. You don't see that too often. But honestly, I would be very surprised if there was an outcome other than a Mike Perry knockout or a Gall submission. I don't see this fight ending any other way. So, I mean, look, if you want to take a stab just naked at +460, that might not be a bad way to go. Or if you really think Perry is going to smash, like somebody just said in chat, you lay the -170. It's much better than -305, and I don't see any other way for Perry to win. So I think of all the fights on the slate, this is the one most interesting from a betting perspective, because there are some clear bets to make, and there's even the opportunity to arb this. So I love this fight for betting. I'll pick Perry to win, but I wouldn't hate anyone who said they wanted to take Gall by submission at +460.
Yeah, Joe, I actually really like that angle a lot. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Luke, what do you got here?
Yeah, so not a whole lot in terms of analysis. I think, as Joe touched on, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I'd be pretty shocked if this one went to the cards. But yeah, just even listening to what Perry was kind of saying in some of his interviews, I literally listened to him say that he said he's going to sit there and stand in the middle of the octagon and wait for Mickey Gall to come to him. So, I mean, it's Mike Perry. I'm not going to sit there and put too much stock into that. But, yeah, I mean, the guy's just a wild card. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out here and starches Mickey Gall, and I also wouldn't be surprised if, Perry even shoots like a shitty shot or something, and then Mickey like cinches up a Darce or something. Like Perry's just a wild card. So to me, yeah, to Joe's point, you definitely can't be laying this kind of chalk, at least on Perry straight. I think the play for me, I definitely understand the value on the hedge there, but I think it would probably be to stab the Gall by submission, to be honest, because I just don't think, honestly, like I said, even if Perry doesn't knock him out, I honestly think you could see a shot from Mike Perry just because he's not the most intelligent guy in the world. And, we can say what we want about Mickey Gall, but the dude's got some crafty jokes. like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Perry shoots something at some point and like Gall just grabs some Darce choke or something. So I think that's probably the play here.
When Perry was married, he found out his wife was having triplets, and he went all over town looking for the other two guys.
There we go, Joe. All right, I'll pass it to you guys.
Lex, what do you got?
To be honest, I don't have much to add. I mean, Mike Perry closing around minus 300 right now. I can't lay that. And I mean, I think Joe nailed it on the hammer. You could probably hedge it perfectly. Perry by KO, Gall by sub. I think it's a perfect way to look at this fight, but I don't know. Like to what Luke said, Perry's a complete wild card. I can't trust with my money. So pass.
Quinn, what about you?
Perry's gonna smash Gall. He's gonna fuck this motherfucker up. But I can't trust Perry at all. I mean, some of the shit he said all week has just been nuts. I think some of it's a gimmick, honestly. Like, I don't really trust it. Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
He's been in so many wars.
I don't know.
He's been in so many wars. I mean, there has to be. I don't know. I just can't trust him at all. And I'll never bet Mickey Gall. I mean,
Quinn, if Perry's punking us with this whole thing, he will become my favorite fighter, hands down. Like that's the.
But I can't trust Gall. I mean, you can't play someone who loses to Diego Sanchez. I mean, you just can't. And Gall has absolutely no striking. I mean, he's gonna be crotch sniffing that entire fight. It just all depends on if he can take Perry down. So and I don't think he can. I think Perry's gonna defend the takedowns and knock him out. But it's a complete pass fight for me. I mean, you can't play Perry at the money that he is, and I do think Joe's narrative is completely right. If you're gonna play Gall, it's 100% by sub, and if you're gonna play Perry, it's 100% by knockout. I mean, that's really the only two outcomes. So I'm gonna go with Perry by knockout, but it's a definite pass fight for me.
Hey, Quinn, I realize that you're 27, but like whenever you swear, I expect to see your mom in the room with the bark.
I'm going to get 50, 60.
So 12 months. So this fight was 12 months ago, and I had minus 290, which is what Dimes was hanging before we went on here. I would have a massive bet on Perry here, just because I actually think Perry's not a bad grappler, to be honest with you. He's looked okay with like some pretty good grapplers in there. And, his offensive wrestling is solid. His defensive wrestling seems solid. He did the right things when Ponzinibbio got him down. But it's not 12 months ago. And the truth of the matter is, if it is a smokescreen, like I said, he will be my new favorite fighter because that's just absolutely incredible. But he seems like Jeff Neal broke his brain. He looked great against Luque. I thought it was the best performance of his career. And then he seemed like he wanted out in the Neal fight almost the first time as soon as his nose started bleeding. So I don't know. Maybe he's fine and, he just knows more better than all of us, but maybe not. In terms of Gall, I think Gall could land a takedown or two. I don't think it's impossible, but I think the odds of him subbing Perry aren't very good. Perry was messing around with Oliveira in the grappling and holding up fine. And even though Gall's got more submission win or has a higher submission rate, I think Alex Oliveira is a much better submission grappler than Gall is. But if you are going to play money on Gall, play him first round sub plus 1,000 right now because if Mickey Gall's got a bad gas tank. I thought it might have been a one-off the Sanchez fight because it was the first time we'd seen it, but he gassed out in the Jahari fight too. It's just that Jahari also gassed. And so it's like Perry at least has pretty good cardio. So it's like Gall has, an early shot. And like you said, Joe, if not, Perry's going to take his head off. So, yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind maybe stabbing Perry KO round 2, round 3. I think that you could bet some decent value there, because I do think there is a decent chance Gall can kind of maybe push Perry to the fence and just look for a takedown for 5 minutes. But, yeah, eventually Perry's going to put him out, I think. And if not, well, then we will have an opportunity to fade Gall again going forward. So, yeah. So with that, we move to the main event of the evening. This is a fun one, definitely the most fun fight on this slate. We got Dan the Hangman Hooker, everybody's favorite villain this week, and he's taking on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Luke, I know you have a bet here. What do you have?
Yep. So I played Dustin Poirier 3 units at minus 175. I got in this one a little bit early. I guess I'll preface by saying I don't discount Dan Hooker at all. I think he's a very talented fighter. Ultimately, I guess I'll make this one relatively quick in the sense I just think there's levels to this game. I think that Dan Hooker is a good fighter, and I think Dustin Poirier is an elite fighter. And I guess just to touch on two fights real quick, we saw really the pressure in terms of Hooker in the Barbosa and Felder fights really just get to him over the course of the 3 rounds. And I think you can just say it's fair to assume that Dustin Poirier is a guy who's just going to come forward for 5 rounds. So, I mean, to make the case for Dan Hooker, I think he does have really solid leg kicks. If we want to go back even a little bit to that Jim Miller-Dustin Poirier fight, Jim Miller actually did make Dustin Poirier switch stances at one point in that fight. He actually just beat the living shit out of Dustin Poirier's legs in that fight. So that really is probably my primary concern here, is that Hooker just gets off on those leg kicks early and just limits that mobility of Poirier and his ability to come forward and just throw shots over the course of 5 rounds. But man, Dustin Poirier is a guy who's just shown that he can take that kind of punishment, man. Like I said, man, I just think there's levels to this game, and at least in terms of pure boxing, I think the pure boxing of Dustin Poirier is just honestly levels better than Dan Hooker here. So, 3 units at -175. Also, one quick point too, I mean, this is going to still be in that smaller cage as well. So for a guy like Dan Hooker, and then once again, real quick, going back to that Barbosa and Felder fight, he's a guy who can really excel when he's kind of able to dictate range early. And, we've seen kind of in those fights, as the fights have progressed, at least in particular to Barbosa and Felder, as those fights have progressed and damage starts to accumulate, that range just kind of slowly creeps in. And that's when guys really start taking over. And to me, that's just like alarm bells for this fight in terms of Dustin Poirier, because I feel like if he's able to not just get overwhelmed by those leg kicks early, keep that pressure on, I just feel like that gap is going to continue to close and close for Dustin Poirier to either secure a late finish or a unanimous decision win. So I got 3 units on Dustin Poirier at -175.
Nice, Luke. Good reasoning. Wags, what do you got for me?
So I'll actually just pick up where Luke left off. I actually have 2 units on Poirier -170. So yeah, I like the small cage. I think this is a great matchup for Poirier in the sense that I think he's just going to put the pressure on Hooker, and I think that even the amount of leg kicks he's going to eat to that inside right leg, I think it's nothing compared to what he ate against Gaethje. I mean, what Luke said, there's levels of this game, and I think that Hooker's going to soon find that out. And I'm tempted to play the over 2.5, but I think that all the damage that Hooker's accumulated from the Barbosa fight and the Felder fight, I mean, I think this could potentially go under, but it's a lean to the over, and I have Poirier straight at -170.
Nice, Lags. How about you, Quinn?
So you both got a better line on the fight than I did. I also have 3 units on Dustin Poirier at -185. So I personally think that Dan Hooker, I don't like his striking defense that well. I mean, he's notoriously been susceptible to left hands and left hooks. I mean, Felder was tagging him with left hands left and right, especially in the later rounds. I mean, when he was eating up Lakina's legs, Lakina switched stances and actually had a lot of success with in the southpaw stance. And going back on it, I don't really think that Hooker has actually faced a southpaw like Dustin Poirier at all. And I don't think, he's going to have that body kick, but I don't think he's going to actually have that inside calf kick with that stance. He's going to have to kick on the outside leg. And I just think Dustin Poirier, he's going to put it on him. I mean, I know Dustin is chinny, and that really does worry me. And you guys know I'm all about hedging. So I'm definitely probably going to hedge on.
Don't do it, Quinn.
No.
Don't do it, Quinn.
I always hedge.
You gotta stick to your read.
Okay, let me finish my analysis.
All right, go ahead.
So yeah, I just think, like in that Max fight, I mean, Dustin put it on him the first 2 rounds. I mean, he pressured him and just put it on him. He landed over 40 significant strikes in the first round. I mean, I don't think that Hooker. I mean, I think in the beginning Hooker has pretty solid distance management, but I don't know how he's going to do with the pressure that Dustin's going to put on him here. I mean, with the smaller cage too. I mean, Hooker's Muay Thai kickboxing stance, the style does not do well with the smaller cage, and Poirier is just going to make that much smaller than him. I mean, he's got some of the best boxing in the UFC. I mean, the guy has an amazing gas tank. I know it looked like he slowed versus Max, but I think it was more of a strategy of like going hard the first 2 rounds, taking the next couple of rounds off, and then going hard in the 5th. So I really do think that Dustin's fight IQ here is going to be high level. And like Luke and Lag said, I mean, there's levels to this game, and I think Dustin is like one of the top strikers in the division. I do think that Hooker is live for a KO here in the first couple of rounds. I mean, he did damage to La Quinta, and Dustin gets hurt every single fight. But what people don't really talk about is Dustin's recoverability is really, really solid. I mean, it's pretty damn good. So I don't know if he is going to go out from the shots. I mean, it all just depends. I mean, we don't really know. Is he going to go out from those early shots, or is he not? I'm going against the latter and saying he's not. So I'm going to go with Dustin Poirier by probably 4th or 5th round finish. And I think he could definitely have some success with his grappling too. I know Hooker has pretty good grappling, but Poirier is a pretty high level black belt, and he has decent wrestling. So I definitely think that towards the end of the rounds, he can get some takedowns here, so which will help him win rounds. So I am pretty confident in Poirier here. So I'm going to go with him by, I'll say 4th round KO.
Joe, how about you?
Okay, so if there was anyone who was ever predestined to be a fighter, it was Dan when his parents didn't go to the courthouse and he had to carry that last name around as a kid. He was definitely destined to be a fighter. By the way, do you guys know where the term hooker originated from?
No, hit me with it.
There was a Union general in the Civil War by the name of Hooker. And there were these camp followers who were women, and they became called hookers because of General Hooker. In any case, I don't have a lot to add here. I think I'm also a supporter of Poirier here. I think this is, since you guys were talking about betting lines, I think this is a very stackable fight in cash on DraftKings. I could easily see the loser scoring 60 points. These are both high output strikers. I am not one who routinely stacks in DraftKings. Some people say I'm anti-stack, but I'm not. So if you guys are playing DraftKings and you want a cash lineup, I think you could do a lot worse than starting with both sides of this fight, because the winner is going to score 100 points even in a 5-round decision, and the loser is going to score 60. I like Diamond Dustin to win this fight. I think Hooker is game. I think he can be hurt, especially to the body, as we've seen in the past. And I do think that the smaller cage works against Hooker. It's not going to let him to fight at range like he would normally fight, or he would want to fight to kind of lengthen things out. It's going to allow Dustin to get inside a lot easier. And it's a 5-round fight. So I like Poirier here. I don't know about a bet, but I do really like him a lot on DraftKings. And I would give Hooker a shot because I think he is live. So, if you want to play him naked, that's fine too. But give me Poirier here.
Yeah, so thanks, Joe. I'm going to go out on an island here. If this was a big cage, I would have already bet Dan Hooker here, to be honest with you. Small cage concerns me quite a bit because if we do see pocket exchanges, I think Poirier is going to light him up in the pocket pretty easily. But that said, look, Dustin Poirier is a better fighter than Dan Hooker. There's not really much question about that in my mind. But I do think there are some stylistic spots where Hooker can have some success. For one, if you go back and look at Poirier's career, and even he's really made a jump in the last 4 years in terms of his ability. He's kind of realized it. But through that, if you look at the guys he's beating guys who like to kind of give him the fight he wants, just get in there, get in those exchanges in the pocket. He's not really fighting guys who kind of, will hang out on the outside. I don't think Hooker has the best control of distance, but Poirier, Max Holloway, you can say Poirier pressured, but really, Max Holloway is going to give that fight to anybody that wants it. Same deal with Eddie Alvarez. Same deal with even Jim Miller. He's the guys that are going to just give him, kind of like a brawl type fight. He likes that. And I don't think, well, like you said, I think it was either you, Luke, or Lags. One of you said it. Eventually he started slowing down and getting walked down. And I do expect that'll probably happen here at some point. But I think in the early going, Hooker's going to give him some serious issues on the outside. Poirier's not. He's kind of hittable, to be honest. And he's gotten hurt early in fights before. Even in the first Eddie fight, he had Eddie on skates and just got too aggressive and almost got finished himself before the knee happened. So, and then I think Hooker's leg kicks could cause a major issue for him. So it's like, should he be minus 220 right now, which is where he is? Like that seems a little nuts to me. I kind of think Hooker's pretty high volume. So I don't know. I'm hoping this gets to plus 200 and I can stay up Hooker there. I might play him anyway. I personally think Dustin should be about minus 150 here. I think he's a better fighter, but we haven't really seen him have to close distance against the bigger fighter. And Hooker, I think Hooker's more durable and I think he hits harder. So it's like, well, I shouldn't say he hits harder, but he's a little bit more dynamic with his finishes. He has all his knees and elbows in the clinch and whatnot. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I think Hooker's live for a finish. I think if it goes to a decision, Poirier is almost certainly just going to beat him up on volume. So yeah, but yeah, I'm picking Hooker here. I think it's going to be a fun fight. So yeah, that's what we got tonight, guys. So I want to thank Joe for stopping by here, doing this with us. We're gonna have him back with us for 251 if he wants to join.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a fun one.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back Monday for the recap show. We may or may not get someone else on this week. Some things are being worked on. We'll update when we know that. Also depends on the outcome of a particular fight, potentially.
Wait, I gotta ask though, because how cool is that? Like Jillian Robinson. That was. Did you guys have any conversations with her?
All lags.
So I actually just thought that it was a relatively young fighter in the UFC. She's coming off a win. She probably has a lot of time in her hands. So I shot her an Instagram DM and I was like, hey, if you had some free time, 20, 30 minutes, we'd love to talk to you.
And I guess an MMA fighter is not gonna is coming on with five guys.
Yeah.
That was so cool, though. I was watching that, and I'm like,
awesome. Joe, if you've got something. So, since you're the guest here, I don't know if anybody else. I couldn't find a Lamba for this card. I'll be honest. But if you've got a big parlay for us, hit us with it now for the people.
Well, look. The parlay I'm looking at is not going to be like a big parlay. I'm looking at Hansen by decision plus 150. I'm looking at Perry by knockout minus 170, and I'm looking at Tanner Bosser minus 112. And I think that's going to give you a nice positive number. I haven't looked at all the math yet, but I'm
you both about a decision there.
Yeah, I'm queuing that up on my phone right now. To actually put that in, I do kind of like that. I think it's a pretty good number, and that's one bet I'm looking at.
All right, so Joe's giving us the Audi parlay here. It sounds pretty good, though. So, yeah, that's what we got this week. Thanks again, Joe. We'll be back Monday doing a recap show, and then we will be back as a group on the following Wednesday after July 4th to break down what is one of the most fun cards of the year. You have Fight Island, UFC 251. I may also that week, depending if anybody wants to join me, do a breakdown show for the LFA main card that weekend if we get lines. We'll see what happens. But yeah, hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. This is kind of a clusterfuck of a card this weekend, but let's have some fun. Let's make some money or let's lose some money. But it's going to be a good time, guys. Thanks for stopping by. We're out of here.
Peace.
Bye-bye.